Xochimilco. Canals snaked through green, whispering with secrets. One island, hidden amongst the reeds, held a different kind of silence. The silence of watchful eyes, the silence of hundreds of dolls. This was the domain of Don Julian Santana. He lived alone, a solitary figure amongst the toys. Or were they toys? Some swore they saw the dolls move, their heads turning, following boats as they passed. The locals whispered of a curse. They said the island was haunted, and the dolls? They were trapped souls, forever bound to the island. Don Julian hadn't always been the island's guardian. He was once a man of laughter and joy, surrounded by the warmth of family and the simplicity of rural life. He'd once been a family man, living a simple life. Then tragedy struck, shattering his world into pieces. His daughter, a lively spirit, was playing by the canal one fateful day. She slipped, her laughter turning into a cry for help. The current, swift and silent, stole her away before anyone could react. The water, once a source of life, became a thief in the blink of an eye. Weeks later, as he wandered the banks in sorrow, Don Julian found a doll caught in the reeds. It was a haunting reminder of his loss. The doll was near the spot where his daughter had vanished, its presence both eerie and comforting. He saw it as a sign, a way to honor her memory. In his grief, he believed the doll was a message from his lost daughter. He hung the doll on a tree, a small, sad guardian against the darkness. But the whispers started, filling the night air with an unsettling presence. At night, Don Julian heard his daughter's name carried by the wind. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if calling out to him. He saw shadows moving in the trees, fleeting figures that seemed to dance just beyond his vision. He felt a presence, cold and mournful, wrapping around him like a shroud. The island, once a place of solitude, became a realm of spirits. He began to believe his daughter's spirit was trapped on the island, unable to find peace. The doll, now one of many, became a symbol of his undying love and unending sorrow. Driven by grief and a need to appease his daughter's spirit, Don Julian began to collect more dolls. He found them discarded, forgotten. Each one he hung on the island, a silent offering. The island transformed. Dolls stared out from the trees, their plastic eyes reflecting the sunlight. They hung from fences, peeked out from bushes. Some were missing limbs, others had eyes that seemed to follow your every move. The whispers grew stronger. Locals claimed to see the dolls move, their limbs twitching as if animated by unseen hands. Boats steered clear, fearing the island's eerie aura. Don Julian, however, felt a strange peace. Surrounded by the dolls, he felt closer to his daughter. Years passed, each one marked by the slow decay of time. The days turned into months and the months into years as the island's eerie presence grew stronger with each passing moment. The island became known as Isla de las Muñecas, the island of the dolls. It was a place where the line between reality and the supernatural seemed to blur, where the dolls' lifeless eyes seemed to follow you wherever you went. Tourists, drawn by the macabre, braved the journey. They came from far and wide, seeking the thrill of the unknown, the chill of the supernatural. Each step they took was filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. They brought offerings, more dolls, trinkets, prayers. Each item was a token of respect, a plea for protection, or perhaps an attempt to appease the spirits that were said to inhabit the island. Don Julian, his hair now white as bone, welcomed them with a solemn nod. His presence was a constant reminder of the island's haunting past, a living testament to the whispers that filled the air. He told them of his daughter, of the whispers he heard. His voice was filled with a sorrow that seemed to echo through the trees, a sorrow that was as much a part of the island as the dolls themselves. Some dismissed it as an old man's ramblings. They laughed it off, treating it as just another ghost story to tell around the campfire. Others felt a shiver down their spines, sensing the island's oppressive atmosphere. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the dolls were more than just lifeless toys. At night, when the tourists were gone, the island truly came alive. The silence was broken by the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the creaking of the dolls as they swayed in the breeze. The whispers intensified, carried on the breeze. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the air with a sense of unease. Don Julian would sit on his porch, listening to the dolls creak and groan. Each sound was a reminder of the past, a reminder of the whispers that had haunted him for so long. He imagined it was his daughter trying to speak to him. In those moments, he felt a connection to her, a connection that transcended time and space, a connection that was as real as the whispers on the water. One day, a group of teenagers, emboldened by bravado and tequila, dared each other to spend the night on the island. The island was notorious for its eerie atmosphere and the unsettling stories that surrounded it. Legends spoke of strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions that haunted the place after dark. They laughed off the stories, convinced it was all a hoax. Night fell and the island was bathed in the pale light of the moon. The teenagers, still full of bravado, gathered around a campfire, sharing more ghost stories and laughing at their own fears. The laughter died down, replaced by an uneasy silence. The forest around them seemed to close in, the shadows growing longer and darker. The once comforting sounds of nature now felt ominous, and every rustle of leaves made them jump. The teenagers huddled together, their bravado fading in the face of the island's oppressive darkness. They clutched their flashlights, the beams cutting through the thick night, but offering little comfort. The stories they had laughed at earlier now seemed all too real. That's when they saw them. At first, it was just a glimmer in the distance, but as their eyes adjusted, they realized what they were looking at. The dolls, their eyes glowing in the moonlight. They were scattered around the island, placed in various positions as if watching the intruders. The sight was both surreal and terrifying. The teenagers swore they saw the dolls move, their heads turning to follow them. Every time they looked away and then back, the dolls seemed to have shifted slightly, their eyes never leaving the group. Terrified, they fled the island, their screams echoing across the water. The once brave group was now a panicked mob, tripping over roots and stumbling in the dark as they made their way to their boat. The next morning, Don Julian found them huddled in their boat, babbling about glowing eyes and moving dolls. They were pale, their eyes wide with fear, and their hands shaking uncontrollably. He just nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. He had heard these stories before, from other terrified souls who had dared to spend the night on the island. He had seen it too. The island's secrets were known to him, and he understood the terror that gripped the teenagers. The dolls were not just objects, they were a part of the island's dark history, a history that continued to haunt anyone who dared to challenge it. One cool evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Don Julian discovered a new doll. It lay nestled amongst the reeds, clean and untouched. It was a beautiful porcelain doll, with rosy cheeks and bright blue eyes. He picked it up, admiring its delicate features. It was unlike the other dolls, which were weathered and worn. This one seemed almost alive. As he turned to hang the doll on a nearby tree, he felt it, a cold hand on his shoulder. He spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. But there was no one there, just the dolls, their unblinking eyes staring at him. He was alone on the island, just as he always had been. Or was he? Don Julian Santana was found dead in the same spot where his daughter had drowned. Some say it was a heart attack, brought on by years of solitude and sorrow. Others whisper that the island had finally claimed him, just as it had claimed his daughter. The news of his death spread quickly. Tourists flocked to the island, drawn by the mystery and the macabre. They whispered of the curse, of the dolls that moved their heads and the eyes that seemed to follow you. The island remained, a testament to one man's grief and the unsettling power of belief. The dolls, exposed to the elements, continued to decay. Their painted smiles cracked and faded, their limbs twisted at unnatural angles. Were they guardians, protecting the island from intruders? Or were they jailers, trapping souls within their lifeless forms? The answer lost in the whispers of the wind and the rustle of plastic limbs, remained a chilling mystery. The Island of the Dolls stands as a stark reminder of the weight of sorrow and loss, and the fine line between love, obsession and madness. Don Julian, driven by grief and despair, created a world both beautiful and unsettling. His story, passed down through whispers and legends, continues to captivate and terrify many. It serves as a cautionary tale for all, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss and grief, some boundaries are not meant to be crossed or tested. Today, the Island of the Dolls remains a popular tourist destination. Visitors come from all over the world to experience its eerie beauty and to pay homage to Don Julian's unwavering devotion. But beneath the surface of this macabre spectacle lies a deeper message. A message about the enduring power of grief, the allure of the unknown, and the delicate balance between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. And as the sun sets on Xochimilco, casting long shadows across the water, one can't help but wonder, are we watching the dolls, or are they watching us?